Warren Buffett, CEO of Berkshire Hathaway, and probably the most famous investor in history, is going to leave the post of CEO of this company. Along with Warren Buffett, a whole era will go away. This is what will be discussed in today's video, and I want to discuss some of his statements. I think this is important, so let's get right to the point. Here's what he said about his departure. The time has come when Greg should become CEO of the company at the end of the year. In other words, Warren Buffett will leave at the end of the year. Buffett also said, "I will still be in touch and may be useful in several cases, but it will be Greg who will make the final decision on operations, capital allocation, and anything else." In other words, Buffett clarifies that he will remain as chairman, and this will add confidence to investors. And I believe that this whole transition process was organized in such a way as to prepare investors. This is a good way to pass the baton. Buffett, in fact, makes it clear to everyone what is happening and expresses full confidence both in his successor and in the company he is leaving. And this, by the way, is Greg Abel. And in case you're wondering, Greg is 62 years old, so he's still quite young compared to Buffett, who is 94 years old and will be 95 at the end of this year. He could have left much earlier, but I think he just likes what he was doing. I also want to note how Buffett interestingly criticizes the world of Trump and Musk. He has done this before, without calling them by name, but in general, he does not hesitate to hint at who exactly he is talking about. And I want to emphasize that Buffett has never done this directly, only indirectly. For example, he said, speaking about world trade, "We should strive to trade with the rest of the world. We have to do what we do best, not what they do best." This clearly doesn't go well with what Trump has been saying all along. According to Buffett, this whole tariff issue is actually destroying world trade. Buffett is against it, he considers it an act of war. Buffett also opposes the arrogantness of Trump and Musk. But don't think Buffett is against America. Isn't that patriotic? Here is another of his statements from that meeting. "The more prosperous the world becomes, the more prosperous the United States of America will be." Also in this speech, he said that if you want to invest somewhere, you invest in the United States. In his opinion, there are much more opportunities on the stock market in the United States compared to the real estate market. But at the same time, Warren Buffett said that events could happen in the United States that would make Berkshire Hathaway want to own many other currencies besides the US dollar. What kind of events are these? He did not name specific ones, but we can assume several of them. For example, a serious weakening of the dollar due to the fact that the United States will actively print money, increase debt, or face a loss of confidence from other countries. Another such event could be inflation in the United States. If it starts to grow again and becomes stable, then the dollar may begin to lose purchasing power. In such circumstances, Buffett may prefer other currencies or assets to preserve the value of capital. The third such event may be fiscal or political instability, and if the US government pursues an economically irresponsible policy. For example, uncontrollably increasing the budget deficit, conducting risky geopolitical games, or interfering in business. Buffett may start looking for currency insurance in foreign currencies. And for example, the fourth such event may be a decline in the role of the dollar in international trade. If more and more countries start using alternatives to the dollar in international settlements, for example, the yuan or the euro, this may lead to a weakening of the dollar in the long run, and therefore Buffett may start hedging. Most likely, these events or similar ones may be the reason why the Berkshire Hathaway will want to own currencies other than the US dollar. I wonder if it's possible that it will be Bitcoin. After all, I already find similar stuffing. Well, the future will show. Buffett also commented on the correction in the stock market that has occurred over the past 100 days. What has happened in the last 45 days, 100 days, whatever period you choose? It's really nothing. According to him, this is a normal part of investing. When asked about why he had accumulated $330 billion in cash, whether he would reinvest it, and whether it was related to his desire to give an inheritance to the new CEO of the company, Buffett said, "I would gladly invest $100 billion tomorrow. But one of the problems in the investment business is that such opportunities do not come in turn." In other words, He means that the market does not always offer good investment opportunities at the right time. And now he does not see such an opportunity. This does not mean that he expects an immediate collapse of everything and everything. It's just that his approach is different from short-term speculation. He is in no hurry to make decisions if he does not see profitable offers, and is ready to wait for the right moment. Buffett again stressed the importance. USA. The United States won. We have become an incredibly important country, starting from scratch 250 years ago. And there was nothing like this in the world. It's a big mistake, in my opinion, when you have 7.5 billion people who don't treat you very well, and 300 million who brag about their success. And I don't think it's right, and I don't think it's wise. We should strive to trade with the rest of the world. Buffett's message is very different from what Musk and Trump are saying. And on the contrary, Buffett says that we should not brag about winning and thereby create hatred in other countries. I'm just reading his words. According to the legendary investor, this is not the best strategy for success. And as Buffett says, I don't think it's right, and I don't think it's wise. As for me, these are very important words. And you know, if someone could brag about their money and achievements, Buffett could definitely do it, right? But he doesn't. Unlike Trump or Musk. Why? Because it's part of his approach to long-term investments. He does not focus his attention on personal success, but focuses on the results and stability of the business. Another thing that makes Buffett very different from Elon Musk and Trump is that at the meeting he said that he was not going to sell any shares of Berkshire Hathaway. Look at Trump or Musk, they don't do that. In fact, if you dig around, you can find connections between Trump and Musk with such foundations that are engaged in charity. Look, here, for example, is the Musk Foundation. This is essentially an empty site. For example, he is accused of laundering money through this fund. But Buffett says he won't sell Berkshire shares after he leaves. However, as we remember, last year, and a little bit this year, Buffett and his team were engaged in selling shares of other companies and accumulated a huge cash reserve. This can be interpreted in different ways. On the one hand, perhaps Buffett is pessimistic about the market and is waiting for a fall, at least he says. That he does not see an opportunity for investment now. On the other, perhaps he is just preparing the ground for the transfer of management to Grego Abel, so that he has a free resource in the form of $330 billion for investment when he takes office. At the same time, Buffett himself stressed that he was not going to sell any shares of Berkshire Hathaway, and this is an important signal. He still believes in the company, but Berkshire is selling shares of some other companies at the same time. Regardless of the reaction of investors to these announcements, this is the right way to transfer power in the company. To say, they say, I'm not selling my shares, I'm confident in the future of the company, I'm confident in the new CEO. And by doing so, he shows investors, the board of directors, and everyone else that the succession plan is already ready and in full force. And therefore, it is unlikely that Berkshire shares will collapse sharply against this background, for example, by 50%, as Tesla did. Buffett has a completely different picture. He bluntly says, at the end of the year I'm leaving, but I fully trust Greg, I'm not selling my shares. Because I believe that they will grow. A completely different approach that leaves no room for speculation and uncertainty in the market. X's recently published a very interesting article, in which they compared Tesla with the Chinese automaker of a company that Warren Buffett himself once invested in. Now the market capitalization of BWT is $145 billion, while their revenue is $114 billion. In principle, almost the same numbers. And now compare with Tesla. The market capitalization is $903 billion, while the revenue is only $96 billion. Although Tesla generates less revenue, its shares are valued at 5 times more expensive than those of BWT. Analysts called it the mask premium, that is, the added value that the market attributes to Tesla, solely because of the personality of Elon Musk. Listen, I like Tesla cars, I drove them and got high. I like new technologies, unmanned vehicles, robotics and so on. But I don't like it when the numbers are artificially inflated due to the hype of one person. I don't like it when the company's board, saying how cool everything is, sells off billions of dollars worth of shares. And I don't like that if Musk leaves the company, then the so-called Musk Award, which is $781 billion at the moment, can go with him. Of the $903 billion of market capitalization, Musk's premium. That's $781 billion. Buffett looks like my favorite by comparison. When Buffett leaves Berkshire Hathaway, investors will not be afraid that some kind of Buffett bonus will go with him. Buffett does what he says, and he speaks clearly and directly. So Buffett's departure is really the departure of the old era of investors and a complete transition to a new world. A world without Buffett, a world without Munger. But the world with Musk and Trump, in which everything boils down to saying one thing and doing another. And even saying another a day after saying the first one. But I also think that in the end, the best qualities of America will prevail and everything will return to normal.